Let me share something with you. You know, up in Montana, the Friends of the Earth got us to obviously reintroduce grizzly bears, and they all obviously got us to reintroduce wolves, okay? And everybody's wondering, gee, where did all the elk go? Well, they're eaten by the wolves. But there's an interesting story, thank you so much, Terry, for sending it to me, about a bear kills 70 sheep in Montana, warning, and it's pretty graphic, it's pretty sad. But what is the Russian bear? You remember hearing about beware when the Russian bear arises or awakes out of its slumber?
Yes.
You guys remember that?
Yes.
If you don't, let me share this with you. I forget the name of the poet, and someone can recall it for me, Sue or anybody else, but it said, beware when the Russian bear comes out of hibernation, okay? Russia didn't lose the Cold War. What a bunch of silly twits that even think that. Russia went into the most amazing counter-espionage, feigning their own destruction to set them up. In essence, they took down the Iron Curtain, and I said it even at the time it came down. I said, you guys were all clapping at the Berlin Wall coming down. Just let me make it easy for you. All the spies who had a hard time in the East getting in the West now got carte blanche. Well, the bear is the Russians. The sheep are the Americans. So what she's picking up on, and Terry, yes, there is an amazing thing here. The bear has arisen, and the sheep, which are the dumbasses, and it's a biblical term, I cannot believe that the American military, outside of being in cahoots with the Russians, they have to be, would allow the Russian bear their presence. We're talking 1,000 exercises in the next couple months. And it's a moot point because I think the Middle East is going to obviously dictate a much sooner timetable. You guys probably saw it. Ahmadinejad said, go ahead, Europe, put an embargo on us and watch what happens. They're already licking their chops. They're not licking their chops. You see, the dumbass, and I'm sorry, but the dumbass Pentagon people don't get it. It's not a question of delivery systems. It's what a question of what's already in this country. It's not a question of searching for nukes that might be in this country. They're strategically positioned in this country. And again, Doug, I went through the whole 9 yards after the breakup of the Soviet Union. The United States, as I said last time on your show, was the only nation that didn't ask Russia where all their pre-positioned nukes were placed in this country prior to, the breakdown and breakup of the Soviet Union, or what was seen as that. Somebody knows where they're at, and by the way, you guys, these aren't Cold War relics. These are not like the Weldon Committee. Look up Kurt Weldon and the Weldon Committee. You'll find that, good night, you'll find that the Russian general who was Boris Yeltsin's national security advisor, Alexander Lebed, testified. You can see on YouTube, Lebed, L-E-B-E-D.
Right.
I basically said that I told you the night his helicopter went down, I said he was assassinated. I was literally 1 week away from getting him on my radio program, Doug.
Oh, man. Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, now, so, Steve, you're talking about a complete and utter occupation of this country, are you not?
Absolutely, but before that, let's put the word destruction and occupation.
Why destroy something that you're going to occupy? In other words, if I'm going to go in and occupy a mansion, we'll say, in the best neighborhood of my town where I live, why would I want to destroy it first before I went in and occupied it? Why not just kill the people, drag them out, and live their life?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of ways to destroy people. First of all, Doug, neutron weapons, of which the Russians have plenty of, a neutron weapon does not destroy by a fireball, and it does not destroy by a blast wave. It destroys by intense neutron bombardment, which kills cells. And basically, you set a neutron weapon off, and everybody's dead. All the people within the blast radius of the, depending on the kilotonnage or the megatonnage of a neutron weapon. And I interviewed, when he was alive, Sam Cohen, the inventor of that. Okay. And he said, Steve, it's a perfect weapon to use because there's no destruction of stuff, just humans.
Okay, all right. So, all right, I got you. All right.
And by the way, it's a human advance. Thank you, Sue. 12/28/2011, Russia Back to the Future, and it's the whole thing about the Russian bear arising. It's human events. It's 12/28/2011, so people can go and check their sources. It's amazing. I'm telling everybody, The day of talk radio entertainment is over. A bunch of firefighters, let me tell you, this is a neat compliment. A bunch of firefighters in Colorado who noticed the anomalies, they found a new accelerant in some of the fires. This is not public knowledge, so we'll make it public knowledge. And according to the firefighters, it's either phosphorus or sodium base, that adding water to it, and if you go look at, what happens, when you add water to some of these things, or take the water away from some of these things, the bottom line is they're saying they found a new gelatinous accelerant that they've never seen before. And the more water they put on it, now these are firefighters, Doug, okay? And they said they have to listen to us because even they see the official party line as being BS, okay? And they're now calling your show, they're calling it Radio Free America. I thought that was kind of funny. And they're calling the shows that Hawk and I are on the same thing. They say, yeah, we got to listen to you guys to get Radio Free America. But I think that's fascinating. Men who are on, and women whose lives are on the line, battling to save people's houses, and yet no one's asking the question, how are these things starting? I've caught so much crap, even from people, well, it's just a combination of the that's why we got eyewitnesses talking about Russian Havoc helicopters. And, oh, by the way, everyone, if 2 and 2 be 4, and 3 and 3 be 6, then, I better not go because I could make something really funny out of that whole thing. But the point being is that you better understand something. There were those fires not present. And then I put up a news story on my website. You guys probably saw it, too. Al-Qaeda encourages, their adherents to set fires in the Northwest.
Oh, they've been doing that since 2002. I mean, we've
yeah, they
seen
have.
this.
And I told everybody I was physically in Glacier Park when I saw the guys. I know that I saw them. And they basically, obviously, one of them was sure going to the bathroom a lot in 20 minutes in a restaurant, back and forth, and they saw me watching them, and one guy got nervous, and, and I'm just sorry, Doug, I wasn't quicker on my feet. After I left, and I put 2 and 2 together, it was too late. I did call the FBI. The bottom line is that we're at a point now where, let me make this easy, a terrorist is nothing more than an employee of someone. You can have ideological terrorism, and they'll say the right political creeds, but guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Terrorists have to pay their bills, too. Someone's always paying someone. And because of the United States and our building up the Mujahideen, which then became the Al-Qaeda, and now because of all of our ties through all the world's espionage, you can hire anybody to get them to do anything if the price is right. So remember, the idea, and here's the biggest issue that we've got to get everyone to see tonight. They cannot grasp what's going on until they understand. The old world system has to go away. The God of heaven, they call them the old gods, have to give way to the new gods. Guess what that means? Jesus out, Lucifer in. Jesus out, Allah in. The point being is that when I read the scripture, you guys, I'm appalled at what is going to become and overtake this nation. Both Pastor Langford and others, where God said we have been in bondage to sin, now we're in captivity to sin. So let me tell you what that means. The Hawaiian Islands. The Hawaiian Islands, guess where the people go that they don't want on the Hawaiian Islands? They don't get to live in, their marijuana plantation. I'm not making fun of any of this. I'm just saying, or whether they're pineapple or whatever they grow, or their coffee, Kona. The bottom line is that they're going to be put on ships and taken to other countries, and they're going to be slaves. The people that get to stay alive, Doug, get to be slaves. The point is that, look, the Illuminati has a plan. That's to kill off 6.5 billion people now. They wanted to kill off 90% of the world's population when it was 6 billion. Okay. The point is how do you do that? That magic 3-letter word called war. But war is in heaven first. War is on earth. War is in the financial arena. War is in the home. Every day I hear of men and women fighting, men and women divorcing, kids turning their parents in. You've probably seen that story. We're seeing total war on all fronts. And Jesus, I understand. I'm not Jesus, but I understand why he wept. Seeing what would come, not just to Jerusalem being destroyed in 70 AD, that was horrific, But looking down through the ages, probably the thing that encouraged his heart is knowing there would be people that would accept him. But when Jesus asked the question, and I asked the Lord, here's how I pray. I say, Father, your Son asked the question, when the Lord returns, will he find faith in the earth? Based on what I see now, Lord, outside of you pouring out your Spirit and you intervening and a select few, I don't think so. Because the problem being is that people I've warned, genetically engineered and the whole thing. Nobody else did that. You know, it came into popular, if you will, context because I was talking about on Coast to Coast a long time ago. Nobody ever talked about it. Oh, they wrote about it in scientific journals. But when you bring this stuff out, here's what's interesting. And I really believe this is true. When we bring this stuff out, it's like a lock and a key that sets in motion those events. In other words, we're not causing them to happen, but they were sealed up by the Spirit of God for the time that they're revealed. So as the time they're being revealed, or a better word is unsealed, then the ramifications of the hidden knowledge, or that which was time-sensitive or time-stamped, you know, then it now becomes relevant. People couldn't have understood genetic mutations, and they didn't have a very good understanding of it, let's say, 15 years ago. They sure do now. They sure do now. But when we're not talking about Dolly the sheep. We're not talking about, you know, some new medical therapy. We're talking about the monsters of mythology being brought back in now. And here's the thing, Doug, that I want to share with people. When Tom Horn broke his story, or actually the scripture on the gates of hell not prevailing, in one of his books, and we did an interview, it was like at that point, the whole Stargate thing, not the movie Stargate, but the whole relevance of Stargates, because one of the words for angel, obviously, is star. The other word is messenger. So messenger gates, obviously, if you have something coming through the gate, they have a message. And what the message is mayhem. So every barrier, every boundary, every, if you will, roadblock to the powers of hell and their minions and their ilk, and then their, what I would call, bulletin board spawn, you know, or their blog spawn. That's my new word, by the way. I call them blog spawn, okay? The bottom line is, it's just my loving embrace for them. The blog spawn, then they absolutely, they're now released into this realm, and so it becomes supernaturally evil. When we're talking, and Joe and you and I and Doug talked about this, why is it that the cannibal, quote-unquote, virus, why is it that they take their clothes off? And right now, you know, I think if I were, and I mean this literally, when I started writing the book on Breathe No Evil and all the biological experimentation that went on and was undertaken on the Tuscaloosa, Mississippi Airmen and everything else, and then the AIDS virus, and when Len Horowitz wrote his great book, Ebola Emerging Viruses, the point is I used to have Len on the show all the time. He might be a good guy to get on your show, okay? And Len is brilliant, you guys. He did his homework. He absolutely knows what he's doing. But the point that I'm trying to make on this is it seems now that they're already experimenting with a zombie virus on Afro-Americans, okay? Doesn't mean it's not going to spread to whites. This is not a racist statement. This causes me to, and I have a lot of Afro-American black, I just call them, you know, the brethren, okay, who don't share my color. You know, and to some people that makes me a race traitor. And I say this, I said, if I were you, I'd be more worried about the color of your heart than the color of their skin. Now, look, I understand the Black Panthers don't love me. I don't love the Black Panthers. But what I'm talking about is a common thread, a genetically altered virus that can be targeted against a specific segment. And what I'm seeing, Doug, is the same thing that went on in Africa now going on in the United States. Nobody else has said it. I'll say it. I can absolutely say that the parallels are uncanny, and I can tell you this. Here's how these guys think. And then I had a very sinister man tell me this once. He said, Steve, he says, we don't really have to come up with new ways of killing people. The old ways are still effective. He said, you know why? He says, people are still stupid, and as long as they remain stupid, our efforts will succeed. And they said, you can go ahead and try and warn them. He said, He said, because by the time you try and warn them, you'll understand. They won't listen to you. They won't believe you because they've swallowed all of our media. They've listened to us. They won't listen to you. So go ahead. In essence, burn yourself out trying to warn them. And one guy who was the head of an intelligence organization in East Germany, he called me the priest. I said, well, that's very nice, but I'm not a priest, okay? I'm not a Catholic. I'm not a, priest. But the point is that in his world, anybody who was a Christian was a priest, okay? And so the point that I'm trying to make in this little aside is that I'm seeing parallel, I'm seeing coincidental, and when I wrote the book Breed No Evil, nobody would touch that. Laurie Garrett came out with The Coming Plague, Preston, The Hot Zone. Those were really great books. But I was a guy saying, hey, look, this is who's doing it, okay? As long as you kept in the realm of scientific academia, you could get a thing published. When you started saying, look what's going on, look at the appropriations. And oh, by the way, did anybody take on the dead scientists? Everybody steals my stuff, but nobody will acknowledge. Some do, and there have been a few faithful people. Why was it me that took this up? This isn't a defense issue. It's a issue of putting the record straight. These men and women at some point in their careers or life either were a threat to the Illuminati, the Luciferians, or it was time to cover their tracks. Because the last thing the devils at our want, they don't want anybody knowing who they are. They don't care what you do to their puppets. They don't care what you say about their puppets. But don't look up beyond the top of the stage and see who's controlling the strings. So that's where we're at, Doug. That's where we're at, Joe.
All right.
Russia, the bear has arisen.